Hi, my name's Tim, and I'm part of the Vineyard Church here in Chester, and just want to welcome everyone to this event tonight with Kintsugi Hope. You really are welcome. Thank you for coming. It's really great to see so many people here. So we've had the privilege, my wife and I have the privilege of knowing a bit about Kintsugi Hope from November 2019, so exactly 2 years ago. And wow, what a journey those 2 years have been. We hosted the team from Kintsugi Hope here in February 2020. We've just been working that out. And so I'm sure some of us can remember 2020, or maybe not. And particularly February 2020 was, obviously what it was. Just remember thinking in February 2020 with the team, the Kintsugi Hope team, which is obviously focused on mental health, just how big an issue mental health was. Some of you know that sort of my day job as a GP, and back then, mental health was just this big challenge, and the NHS wasn't coping, and I was saying churches need to get more involved in meeting the demand, meeting people's needs, and helping people cope and helping people find ways through their mental health struggles. That was February 2020. Little did we know what we've been through. So, the whole thing has obviously become such even a bigger issue, and the NHS can cope even less now with it. And as a GP, obviously I don't have time to tell you stories of that, but it really is really quite worrying, the numbers of people who we see as GPs who are struggling. And Kintsugi Hope is one of the fantastic resources that's available now. So it's great to welcome you, and it's great to welcome Kintsugi Hope. And we're looking forward to a great evening with the Kintsugi Hope team, who will all introduce themselves. So I'm not going to do that. But handing over to Gerald.
Well, it's a welcome from him, and it's a welcome from me. As he said, my name is Gerald, and I'm on the leadership team of Northgate, and it's a real joy to be able to do something in collaboration with Vineyard and to be able to host this evening together. Welcome to Northgate Church here. The other things of the evening, the wonderful Lynette is going to explain to us. So, Lynette, come on up.
Thank you from that great duo. It was a great introduction. Welcome to all of you. You all look highly expectant, and we are thrilled to be here. We've been in Chester before, and it's a delight to be back. And we're aware you've given up your evening to come and share it with us. We often say as a team, one of the most precious things we can give each other is our time. And it's an honour for us to give our time to you tonight. And it's an honour for us that you've given your time here this evening as well. One of the things to let you know is we will be referring to some of the resources that we've bought during the evening, and will be open in the break and also at the end. If you like to follow what's going on social media, the hashtag BF Tour should come up there for you. Oh, how about that? If you take any photos, you're very welcome to share them on social media and follow also what's going on with the rest of the tour. The team here with me are Mike Coates, who has worked alongside Patrick in many different capacities for many, many years. He's an all-round superstar. He can fix anything. So if you've got any broken things in your bags or wherever, then come and see Mike in the break, because he's guaranteed to fix it. But he's going to be joining Natasha, who's also with us tonight. And Natasha happens to be Patrick and Diane's goddaughter, but she's here because she is a professional musician and is going to be joining Mike in just a moment as they bring some song to us during the evening. And Patrick Regan is here too, who I'll introduce you to in a minute. And we've also got Joel Harris with us, who works a lot with young people and students. So you'll probably be hearing from Joel a lot during the evening as well. But what is Kintsugi Hope? How many of you may never have heard of Kintsugi? Well, we'll tell you a bit more as the evening goes on, but essentially we exist to help people with their mental and emotional well-being in many different ways, but the prime way is to create safe and supportive spaces in which people can feel connected, not isolated, and learn some tools or be accepted in a non-judgmental space as to who they are and what uniquely makes them them wherever they are on that whole spectrum of our mental health and emotional well-being. So that's partly why we exist. So you're going to hear from Patrick. I'm going to sit up here and have a relaxed conversation with Patrick, particularly around aspects of change, which we've all faced recently. What is courage? How do we move in the area of courage? But also in resilience and what actually resilience is. And you'll see Bouncing Forwards is the name of the tour, and it's also the name of Patrick's 6th book. And we've got his others here on the stand for you. So we're going to be talking quite a lot about resilience, and whatever it is you think or know about resilience, we're just going to show you a quick video of some friends of ours who we asked what resilience meant to them, and then I'm going to hand over to Tashi and to Mike to bring us a song. So have a look at this video.
Resilience to me means standing firm in the face of adversity. There's a saying, fall down 7 times, stand up 8, and that for me perfectly encapsulates it.
I don't think I even knew the meaning of the word resilience until our son was killed. I think that Ray, on the night that he chose to walk God's way, just watching him taking that stand for me taught me that actually you can choose resilience.
For me, this has kind of been part of what my whole life has all been about pushing through those adverse experiences and moving forward for positive change.
I kind of like see resilience in my mind, that the journey's not always smooth, but it's just that the fact that you've made it to the station and you're about to jump on this train it shows your courage. Courage comes from being resilient, and that's how I see it.
I think for me, resilience is about actually feeling the things that are happening around you. I think often we can kind of try to mask things or put things off or put things on other people, but resilience is actually sitting in that moment, feeling whatever it is you're going through and figuring out what new normal looks like, not expecting it to be the way it was.
Well, I've just been praying and asked God what is resilience. He said it is a spiritual stubbornness.
I like that.
Yeah. It's a stubbornness that, I'm going to go the way you want me to go, I'm not going to bend or move. And I just feel that was the right way to go when Chris got killed, to go his way, not the other way.
Resilience, or bouncing forward, to me looks like it's growth, and it's an opportunity for learning, and it's about maturing, actually. Yes, it can be difficult sometimes going through the process, but if you see that as ultimately you will be a more rounded human being, a more mature person through it.
It's about getting up and keeping moving forward even though you might have those really challenging days. In recovery from an eating disorder, and more broadly with mental health, we are faced with those ups and those downs, and it's sometimes about sitting with that discomfort, about accepting that it's happening, being kind and caring to yourself.
Despite what happens in life, even if you fall flat on your face, you get yourself up, because that's still forward momentum. And you've got to bounce out of that. You've got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going.
Resilience looks like not hardening your heart, still staying open to possibilities, leaning into God even when things are tough, and holding on to hope, even when it seems fairly slim, but just not letting go of hope and knowing that God can do the impossible.
We had the world at our feet, we owned a garden, traded it for sweat and tears, watched the ground harden. You overcome my shame, my curse, by coming close, by coming closer. You let me feel forever. You are where I begin. You draw the pieces back together and show me hope in exile. I want to live, not just survive. I want to be made whole. And if I trust you like a child, will your promise hold me? For as long as you are near, I don't know fear, I don't know fear. You let me feel forever. You are where I begin. You draw the pieces back together and show me hope in exile. Not too late now for your kindness to turn this cold stone heart into one that burns. It's not too late now for your kindness to turn this cold stone heart into one that burns. Ooh, you let me feel forever. You are where I begin. You draw the pieces back together and show me hope in exile. You show me hope in exile. Thank you very much. Well, we're so blessed to be here tonight. Thank you for being here also. That was a song called Exile by my friend Nadine, and I heard it years ago at her album launch, and it really struck something in my heart. And I don't know why, but it stayed in my mind, playing around. And I wouldn't know the importance it had in my life until years later when a global pandemic hit us. And I found myself feeling very lost and my own type of exile away from my family, my friends, my so-called normal life. And the truth is, life is tough. We can have some amazing highs, but also some very dark lows. And for me, some of my biggest enemies are the thoughts and voices that spin around in my head, making me feel like I'm alone, that I'm too weak, that I've fallen short and that I'm not enough. This next song that we're going to sing is called You Say, and this song met me in that place, and the words taught me, and are still teaching me now, and probably for a long time, that no matter what situation we're going through, whatever our circumstances and feelings are, we are still loved, and we are not alone. Keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every low? Remind me once again just who I am, because I need to know. Ooh, you say I am loved, and I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong, when I think I am weak. You say I am held, when I am falling short, and when I don't belong. You say I am yours, and I believe, oh I believe what you say of me. I believe. The only thing that matters now is everything you think of me. You I find my worth, in you I find my identity. Ooh, you say I'm loved, when I can't feel a thing. You say I'm strong, when I think I am weak. You say I am held, when I am falling short, and when I don't belong. You say I am yours, and I believe, oh I believe what you say of me. I believe. I'm taking all I have, now I'm laying it at your feet. You have every failure, God. You have every victory. Ooh, you say I'm loved, when I can't feel a thing. You say I'm strong, when I think I am weak. You say I'm held, when I'm falling short, and when I don't belong. You say I am yours, and I believe, oh I believe what you say of me. I believe, oh I believe, yes I believe what you say of me. I believe.
Thank you both so much. That was absolutely beautiful. I'm going to be joined up here in a moment by Patrick Regan, who is the founder, along with his wife, Diane, of Kintsugi Hope. But Patrick, I don't know if it says it up there, I don't think it does. He has actually got an OBE, which was awarded by the Queen herself, which I don't think happens to everybody, but did to Patrick. That was for his work with young people, because he also founded a charity called XLP working in London. He's also the Honorary Fellow of South Bank University for his work in the whole area of well-being and justice. He also has 4 kids, which I think probably deserves even more applause than the OBE and the Honorary Fellow. Has a wife, Diane. He supports Tottenham and has written 6 books. So, Patrick, you happy to come join me? We're going to have a relaxed conversation and get to know you a bit. There you go. Your poppy's fallen off, by the way. You've got pins sticking in your chest. That's better. No, I've still got mine. So we have already indicated that one of the big things for Kintsugi is creating safe and supportive spaces. So first and foremost, this is a safe and supportive space for you up here. Yeah. And one of the wonderful ways we can feel more safe and supportive is to tell some stories about ourselves and tell our life story. And one of the lovely ways I think it would be great to get to know a little bit more about you would be to tell us a little bit maybe about some embarrassing life stories that you've had, because I've just bigged you up big time in your bio, and so we just need to know the real you a little bit more. So, got an embarrassing story up your sleeve? Don't let me down, Patrick. You have. I know you have.
The other day, when preachers say that, they mean a couple of years ago. And I guess one of the things I've always struggled with is I lived in Peckham for most of my life. You remember, anyone heard of Peckham? It's where Dale and Rodney Trotter live. It's amazing. It's the only place I know you can buy half a goat and a mobile phone in the same shop. It's amazing. And I absolutely love Peckham. And you know, as young people, I've always wanted to be quite streetwise and tough and urban. And the other day, it was 7:30 in the morning, and a guy was banging on my door. And I don't know about you, but I sort of think mornings are of the devil. I don't like them. Along with DIY programs, make your husband's life miserable programs, and Arsenal fans, all of the devil as far as I'm concerned. And it came to this point in the morning, he was banging on the door 7:30, and I knew that this guy was had just come out of prison for GBH, and he'd been dealing cocaine, and he looked really, really angry. So I was like, it's all right, you know, I'm tough, I can deal with this. I'm going to open the door and I'm going to confront him about coming to my house at 7:30 on a Saturday morning, and the kids haven't woken me up yet, so I wasn't particularly happy. But this guy literally was one of the strongest guys that I've ever seen, and so I thought, that's it. So I opened the door and there he was, like snarling at me. And then I looked down and I realised that I was wearing my Peppa Pig pyjamas.
You have Peppa Pig pyjamas?
In fact, Daddy Pig. And
I don't know if that's
Pig
better or worse.
Literally running all over my legs, and to be honest, I couldn't focus. I had no idea what he said. Or I was thinking.
I'm sure he couldn't think in Peppa Pig pyjamas.
To be honest, it did shut him up a bit. It was.
Not surprised.
I think it worked quite well. So that was highly embarrassing.
Okay, thank you. That was a great embarrassing story. Moving on swiftly from that, I think, we are here under the title Bouncing Forwards, and you've written a book all about it. So why did you write it? I mean, I know you've written, this is your 6th one, and I know from other writers that speak that it's almost like giving birth. They say it's brewing in you. It's really it lays yourself quite bare, doesn't it, out there, putting pen to paper and writing something. So what made you write another book?
Yeah, well, I previously wrote a book called Honesty Over Silence, and it had this tagline in it which said, it's okay not to be okay, which actually I firmly believe in. And But I was absolutely amazed by the emails that were sent to me, which were both heartbreaking and heartwarming, really. And people just saying, I've never read anything that's so honest before, particularly from someone coming from a faith perspective. And as I read all these emails, I was like, you know what? I really believe, hand on heart, it is okay not to be okay, but I don't want people to be stuck not being okay. I want them to thrive. I want them to do well. And so I remember saying to my publisher, I think I'm going to write a book on resilience. Would you be up for publishing that? And I looked at the sort of definitions of resilience. And resilience isn't like suddenly everything's fantastic. It doesn't mean just keep going, whatever. Resilience is thriving in the midst of adversity. So imagine how I felt like deciding this in the January, and then in February, COVID hit. And then in May, it was the unjust murder of George Floyd. I was like, how on earth do I write a book now in that backdrop of thriving in the midst of adversity? And to be honest, I said to my wife, I can't do it. It's too hard. It's too difficult. And she was like, come on, this is the best time for you to write this. And it was really interesting researching for the book, because a lot of people describe resilience as bouncing back. You've probably heard it on the news, haven't you? Will the economy bounce back? Will the church bounce back? Will education bounce back? Will anyone come back? You know, this sense of always going back. And I was like, I don't want to go back. I've been changed by this last 18 months, nearly 2 years now. Don't get me wrong, I'm not glad we've been through it. I'm not one of those people. But I've learned stuff. I've learned stuff about my values and what's important to me. And why would anyone want to go back to their pre-trauma self and want to go through all those lessons again? And so we started thinking about what's it mean to bounce forwards instead of bounce back. And there's an illustration I use in the book and say that there's a difference between a tennis ball, which obviously bounce back, and a tomato. If I try and do this with a tomato, it's going to be a little bit of a mess. But if I plant the tennis ball, maybe in a year's time, it was probably going to be absolutely useless. It would be a decomposed mess. Hopefully, if I plant the tomato with the right conditions, and even though it may feel really dark, actually life will come and it will grow. And as well as post-traumatic stress, there is something called post-traumatic growth, where people go, you know what, adversity has changed us in a good way. And I think the key thing is that resilience isn't a fixed trait. It's something that can be learned. It's something that can be cultivated. And so that's why I wrote the book.
Thank you. We will always remember the tomato and the tennis ball. Maybe that could be a title of another book, Patrick. Quite catchy. As I've got to know you over the years, I know that there have been times in your life that have been tough for all sorts of reasons, as with many of us here tonight. So you're talking a lot about bouncing forwards. Have there ever been moments when you've wondered personally whether you would bounce forwards?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like sometimes, I don't know if anyone else experiences this, where everything goes wrong at once. Does anyone else put your hand up? Does it ever happen to you? I just want to be on my own, okay? I don't know what it is. It's like a perfect storm of things going wrong. And for me, it was around my dad getting cancer and having an operation where he was meant to be in hospital for a week. It ended up being 9 weeks, 4 operations. It was around my kids getting sick. It was around me having to have limb reconstruction surgery, a big metal frame that you can see here on the screen, which went through my legs, pins drilled into my bones, and those frames were on for 6 months at a time. The operation was at different times. I had to wait a year and a half between the operations. So psychologically, that was pretty hard to do. But to be honest with you, I think I hid behind that a lot. And actually, my problem was I was really struggling with anxiety. And I think what happens is when you go through a traumatic time, it's like rocket fuel to your anxiety, isn't it? And I feel like that's what COVID's done. That actually, you know, I love this little diagram that comes up here. It says, you know, there's trauma, there's your heart, and your brain basically is piling on everything else. And then a minor inconvenience just sends you over the edge. Does that happen to anyone else? It could be the tiniest thing, can't it? And I know for me, that feeling of anxiety was terrifying. And it was like I was falling, I was trying to grab a branch, I couldn't get hold of a branch. And in some ways, having faith was great, but it was also hard because I felt like I should have this sorted. I should pray a bit more, or sort myself out a little bit more, and, you know, give myself a good talking to, and read more. And to be honest, Lynette, the way I got through it, or should I say the way I'm continually to get through it, is I realised that I needed to accept it for what it was. And one of the really interesting things that I wrote in the book was that, and I really want you guys to hear this, is that accepting something doesn't mean you're defeated by it. Acceptance and resignation are two really different things. And it was fascinating that during the research, I got to interview Anne Frank's stepsister, Eva Schloss. She's 93. She survived Auschwitz. And we talked about the Auschwitz survivors. And the people that survived Auschwitz were not the optimists. The optimists would go, I'll be out by Monday, I'll be out by Christmas, I'll be out by Easter. They died of a broken heart. The people that survived Auschwitz were those that accepted the situation they were in, adapted to it, but never lost hope. And there was a lot of luck, to be honest. But I want to be that person that actually accepts what's going on. Let's be real, let's be honest, let's be authentic. I'm fed up with the show. But let's not lose hope. Let's not lose hope. And I don't know if you've seen this image here of this beautiful young lady. She was on America's Got Talent. She's got a rare form of cancer. She's got a very small percentage chance to survive. And she performed, and she said this quote, which I thought was so beautiful. She says, you can't wait till life isn't hard before you're happy. And I think that's what resilience is actually going, I'm going to thrive in the midst here of adversity.
Thank you. Powerful stuff. I know people that have gone through some of the things you've gone through, have developed their resilience, but people often talk a lot about feeling guilty because of what they've gone through and what they've put their families through, some of the things they haven't been able to do, they pile on the guilt. And others talk about feeling this deep sense of shame as well. So you talked a lot about guilt and shame in the past. How do we understand what the difference is between those two things? Because they often get a bit muddled in my mind.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think guilt is I've done something wrong. Shame is I believe I am wrong. So I often say to my workers, if you're constantly late for work, I'd actually quite be up for you feeling a bit guilty. Because you might be there on time tomorrow. But shame is something much more toxic. And Brené Brown famously says, shame loves silence, secrecy and judgment. It has two gremlins. Have you ever heard these voices before? Who do you think you are? And you're not enough. And I think what often happens is that we say that to ourselves all the time, and stepping out of shame means owning your story. It means being authentic. It takes courage to do that. And I think what happens is that shame drives what I call like perfectionist behaviour. And perfectionist is that sense, I just want it to be perfect. And it's different to trying your best. Perfectionism and trying your best are two really different things. I just need it to be perfect. I need the perfect relationship. I need to be the perfect parent. You know, if you're a parent, you'll know that this like plays in your mind all the time because you're like, oh, my mistakes are going to affect my children growing up. And you start thinking about it. And then perfectionism, what happens is, and I think this is so true for so many of us, it reveals itself in different ways. So one of the reasons it reveals itself in my life is catastrophic thinking. I mean, have you ever done this, or am I completely on my own here? Is that something minor happens, and to you, it's the end of the world. There's a few people sniggering already. You know, I've often said to my wife, you know, I can't believe this is happening. This is the end of our marriage. I can't believe it. And she's like, for heaven's sake, I'll make the cup of tea. It's fine. And but, you know, I've blown it all out of proportion. Or the other one is people that struggle with perfectionism. It's like that mind reading. You know, that, for instance, like, I don't know, there's about 90 people here. You're all looking at me, and I think I know what you think of me by just looking at your face right now. And to be honest, it's not very positive. When will he shut up? And you start to mind read. You start to go, oh my goodness, they hate me. What's wrong? I need to try harder. And you do that with people in friendships all the time. Or you have these unrealistic expectations we put on ourselves. You know, I've often said to leaders, no one's led through a pandemic before. Please stop putting so much pressure on yourself. Decision making, it takes forever, right? And for me, it's not the biggest decision. You know, my kids often, when I've got the Netflix remote control, after about 15 minutes, they're like, Dad, we don't care what we watch anymore. We'll watch anything. Just choose a flipping program. And I just want to get the right one for the whole family. We literally don't care. We just want to watch something. Or The other one is that we just care too much and we end up people pleasing. And so what we do with that is we act differently around different types of people because we want them to accept us. Now here's the key. Shame drives perfectionism. Perfectionism then drives anxiety. And I've often seen that people often down on people that got anxiety, but people that got anxiety, from what I've worked out over the years, they're often people that just care too much. And actually they're beautiful, lovely people. And they don't need to be made to feel guilty all the time. They just care too much. And it's learning to manage those emotions rather than be controlled by them.
I like that phrase, manage those emotions rather than be, because we have emotions, don't we? We were created as feeling beings, so, but to manage them and not be overwhelmed by them is a really key thing. You've mentioned what you say to yourself, and some people refer to that as that inner critic. What is that inner critic? What does it do to you? Because I know what it does to me. I know the messages and the guilt over the shoulds and musts and oughts. But how does that play out for you? Because this is about you, not me.
I think someone once said, I don't know who does this sort of research, that we have between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts. I mean, how do they know that? But the predominant of our thoughts are negative. And I think about the inner critic is you treat yourself the way that you would never dream of treating your friends, would you? And you would say things to yourself you wouldn't dream of saying anything to anyone else. And the thing about the inner critic, there is nowhere it won't go. There is literally nothing off limits. It tells you that you need to try harder, that you're a rubbish parent, that you should be okay, you ought to be stronger, you must pull yourself together, everyone's looking to you. And its voice is accusing, it's unkind, there's no grace, there's no love. And it constantly compares you to everyone else. Like my inner critic constantly compares me to other speakers or writers or people that run charities and go, look, they're far more intelligent and engaging than you. What do you think you're doing? And I think it can be really hard to engage with the other voice, an alternative voice in that scenario.
Do you want to have a go at engaging with that other voice?
Not really, no. Yeah, of course I do, Lynette. That's
So
what I mean.
we'll do a little experiment, and I am going to be an alternative to your inner critic, and you're going to carry on being your own inner critic, okay? And we'll see how it plays out. Okay, go.
You're ugly,
you are
you're
absolutely
smelly, you're
loved
useless,
and
you need to be a better
valued
parent,
and special.
You're not very educational,
You are known,
you're not
you
very
are
academic,
seen,
in fact.
and
Everyone
actually
looks
you are
incredibly
uniquely
bored
you,
confused
and we
right now.
love
That's
spending
because
time with
you're
you
useless,
because
and you
you're
need to go
so
home and get a proper
worthwhile
job
and
where You're
valued.
not running a charity
And
and doing something normal.
it's about
with
who you
normal
are, not
people.
what you do. Did you hear me?
No, not at all. No. Interestingly, who heard the negative voice the loudest? Put your hand up. Okay, that's most of us. Who heard the positive voice the loudest? That's a few of you. Who heard the negative voice the loudest but really tried to concentrate on the positive voice? Your voice is so positive. But you know,
Sometimes though, it's about where you're looking as
Yeah.
well. You know, sometimes if you're looking at
Yeah.
at where that positive voice is coming from, that can help.
I think someone once said to me about self-compassion, and I was like, I'm a bloke, I don't do self-compassion. Isn't that like baths and candles or something? I'm like, I'm just not feeling it. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, you've totally got this wrong. Self-compassion is talking to yourself the way that you would talk to your best friend, and that's really hard sometimes, right? And that kindness to ourselves. We were running our Kintsugi group. My wife was the leader. I was the annoying assistant leader. And there's a week on self-acceptance in the 12 weeks that Kintsugi do. And we got to this week, and we had to write down what our inner critic says to us. And so I was really honest. I was like, my inner critic says to me, I'm not intelligent enough. No one actually likes me. I'm not good enough. And I only got my OBE because everyone around me is absolutely fantastic. And then Diane, my wife, she showed this video, and it was this woman who was basically saying to her friends, you know, what did your inner critic say to you? And then they tell her, you know, I'm not a good enough parent, I can't do this, you know, I'm selfish. And then they basically held up a picture of their younger selves, so when they were about 5 or 6 or something. And then they went, could you say what you just said to this person? And they were like, no. And they're like, well, you're saying it to this person. You're actually saying it to this person. Now, what do you think this person needs to hear? And they were like, you're enough. Your opinion matters. You're valuable, not about what you do, because of who you are. And to be honest, I watched this video and I was like, girly. And not really interested. And then I went about my day. And then the next day I was around my parents' house. And because I struggle with this inner critic thing, I was walking up the stairs. And as I go up the stairs, these pictures are up the stairs.
Oh, you were cute.
And to be honest, it got me. God got me, man. I tell you, he was like, you've got to stop it. You've got to stop it. It's not serving you well, your inner critic. And I think it is really hard. And so when you came in, on your tables, you should have this piece of paper. Can you find it for me? It's a little bit of a card. It's got a river on one side, and on the other side, it's got some alternative voices. So this is yours. This is for you. Take it home. And when you feel your inner critic going a bit crazy, put it on your fridge, put it by your bed, put it in your diary, whatever you want to do with it. But please give it a go. Read some positivity. You are doing the best you can. Some of you are so are. Making a mistake doesn't make you a failure. Struggling doesn't make you a failure. It makes you human. No one is perfect. It's okay not to be okay all the time. It's okay that not everyone will like you. Everyone is allowed a bad day. You are loved. We're just going to show you a little bit of a video now. I think this probably, people ask me about my faith quite a lot, and I say, well, this pretty much describes my prayer life. Check it out.
So simple, but so true. You mentioned, I think, about how for you sometimes that inner critic plays out in, I'm not good enough, you compare yourself to other people. And sometimes we squash our own emotions because we are in the comparison game all too often. And I just wonder whether squashing down those emotions, partly because of that inner critic, has been something that a lot of us may have struggled with, particularly this last year or two, where we've actually faced a lot of grief and loss, whether that's in any capacity. We have all lost a lot, and we may well be grieving. So in that sense, how do we manage that, Patrick? How do we bounce forwards, or how do we manage those emotions that our inner critic might be telling us to ignore?
I think it's such an important question, because I think grief affects all of us in different ways. And I know something I found really helpful in trying to understand this is looking at grief with a capital G and a lowercase g. A capital G stands for major bereavement, because I think major bereavement does change everything. I mean, it affects us in a way that so many other things don't. But there's a lowercase g, and a lowercase g, I guess, are still losses. So me and my wife, we lost out on having our 25th wedding anniversary. My daughter lost out on her 18th birthday because of COVID. People have lost their jobs. People have lost that camaraderie of people around them. People have lost their confidence in some areas. And actually, there's still losses. And so whether it's a capital G or a lowercase g, it still needs to be grieved in the same way. It still needs that we need to label those emotions. For other people, it's what I describe in the book as ambiguous losses. So an ambiguous loss means it hasn't got a fixed point that you can grieve. So for instance, my friends who are single, they were like, I really want to have kids. and I have never met anyone, so I don't even know if I can have kids. And there's not this point where I suddenly grieve that. It just is happening. I don't quite know how to handle that. My nan got Alzheimer's, and she slowly got worse and worse over 10 years, and it was like, where do I grieve that? Where's that loss? She's not my nan in the same way. She is my nan, but she's not my nan in the same way. And so I think how you grieve is really, really important.
If it's really important, how do we do that then? How do we do it well?
I think grieving well, one is, let's just put it out there, let's avoid platitudes. So when my brother died, everyone told me God must have wanted him. Well, guess what? I wanted him as well. Let's stop saying things like God won't give you more than you can handle, which is actually misquoting a verse in Corinthians. Let's stop saying everything happens for a reason. Let's stop saying give your pain to God. I get it, but you can't just package up your emotions, put them in a box and hand them over. It's really, really hard. And it's interesting, again, as I was studying this for the book, is I looked at the work of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, I guess, who's one of the sort of leading authorities on grief. And she talks about these stages of grief, which you'll probably all be aware of. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I was like, I've got a real problem with this. And I know I'm not allowed to have a problem with someone as famous as Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. But I was like, I get stuck in the bargaining stage. I think I get through that stage and I get a little bit angry again. And then I go to depression. I'm like, when am I ever going to get to acceptance? And then when I got there, I think I slip back again. And my friend, my real friend, Tanya Marlowe, she's got ME. She gets out of bed. She's a theologian. She's amazing. And she gets out of bed about an hour a day if she's lucky. She said, Patrick, you know, that was written for people who were dying. It wasn't written for those that were left behind. And we've taken something that was written towards those who are dying and applied it to those that are left behind. And actually, that suddenly made so much more sense to me. My mum's a hospice nurse. She's one of the longest serving hospice nurses in the country. And they use this analogy, some of them do. They say, if you imagine grief as a ball, and life is a box, and the ball bounces around this box, and everyone has a pain button. And when a major bereavement happens, for instance, the ball hits the box, bang! The pain button all the time. And it's really, really overwhelming. And then they say, actually, over time, grief doesn't disappear. You don't go through some 5 magic steps and then suddenly it's all good. Is what can happen to some people is maybe the ball gets a little bit smaller. But you know what? It's still bouncing around the box. And ever so occasionally, and maybe even more regularly, it's going to hit the pain button again. And it's going to hurt. And I think that's a really helpful way. You know, my wife the other day, she had a really sad day, and I said to her, what's wrong? And she said, I miss my grandma. And I was like, but your grandma died like 25 years ago. And you know, me being the sensitive person I am, I was like, I thought you'd got over that. And she was like, I know, but today I miss my grandma because my kids are getting older and I wanted them to see them play football or get their school certificates or whatever it was. Bang! Ball hit the paint button. And I think there's a bit of a freedom in realising that's okay. That's all right. And for some people, they say, actually, the ball doesn't change, the box gets bigger. But whatever analogy works for you, it's realising that this is a process that we need to go through. And that's all right.
Thank you. I'm sure that whole analogy will be really helpful to lots of us. We are here with Kintsugi Hope on our T-shirts, and you see sort of things, illustrations around with broken pottery, fixed, made more beautiful with gold glue, all of those images. Treasure in Life Scars is on the back. Is it on the back of my T-shirt?
Yes.
Yeah, just checking. So tell us a bit more about Kintsugi Hope, what the vision is. Explain it a little bit more to us.
Yeah, well, me and my wife died. We started Kintsugi Hope in 2018, not that long ago, and really felt that we wanted to try and help people in 2 areas. One was social isolation, and the other one was mental health. We had no idea COVID was around the corner. And I'd run a charity previously that had grown to quite a large charity, and I remember praying one day saying that, you know, I'll do anything you want me to do apart from run another charity. because I never want to fundraise ever again in my life. I just don't want to do it. I quit. And I really felt quite strongly this sort of sense of don't think charity, think movement. And I was like, what on earth does that mean? So I studied movements for a long time. I looked at parkrun. Anyone here done parkrun? Is any good runners here? There's a few people. And parkrun's amazing, actually. Hundreds of thousands of people who run in parks across this country. You belong, but you don't have to fit in. Different ages, different abilities, different cultures, doing something together. We looked at rock choir, which again, very similar concept. Choirs started in community halls and schools, and then they came together and they hired Wembley Arena. 18,000 of them met there, different cultures, different ages, different abilities. You belong, but you don't have to fit in. We looked at Weight Watchers and Slimming World, which is literally everywhere. I joined Weight Watchers. I need to join it again after the pandemic. And but these guys were so non-judgmental in so many ways. And we looked at Alcoholics Anonymous, the 12-step program that has literally changed people's lives. And to cut a really long story short, me and my wife, Diane, we wrote a 12-week program about well-being. And we were like, everyone invests by going to the gym to their physical health. What can we do to help people in their mental and emotional health? What can we do to give them tools, to give them techniques, to give them support, give them community, to get alongside them? And it was incredible. And, the 12 weeks looked at all the sort of things, I guess you'd think, like anxiety and stigma and forgiveness. And we wrote it all in learning styles, so it's not just like a resource you can take off a shelf. It's a living, breathing, changing all the time with all sorts of creative learning styles in it. And then we basically trained churches and charities to deliver it all over the country. And we were excited. This map shows you where we were before the pandemic. Churches were going, this is fantastic. We could run this in homeless shelters. And they started in homeless shelters. They started in prisons. They started in schools and universities and pubs. We were talking about opening up in farmers' markets because suicide rates amongst farmers is really high. And we were like, this is amazing. This is so what we wanted to do, is try and help so many people. And then COVID hit. And we're like, we're doomed. And how are we going to survive? What's going to happen? We moved all our training online, which actually was great. It means anyone could do it from anywhere now. And we started to say, why don't you run this to help people in your community? And this is what happened. It went completely crazy. Groups started happening literally everywhere. In fact, there are now over 1,000 Kintsugi leaders all over the country in 318 different churches. There are stories of people coming to faith, people coming back to faith. Someone got baptized a couple of weeks ago after being in a Kintsugi group. And the groups are not there to fix, they're there to love, they're there to get tools, they're there to get support, to get additional needs. Just this lovely guy started one online who's got cerebral palsy. He goes, this is the only time I get to talk about some of my issues, and it's beautiful. We've had people go on them who've been suffering for so much shame that at the start of their Kintsugi group, they sat with the lights off so you could just make out their silhouette. Often mums that have been through a really hard time with their kids. And there's this one beautiful story of one mum who lost her kid to foster care because it had been so difficult. And she felt so much shame and so much guilt and all this stuff. And had a light off for the first 4 weeks. After the week on shame, which talks about stepping out of silence, secrecy and judgment and owning your story, bang, the light was on again. I was like, yes, that's what we're all about. We had another lovely story of a woman who, she had a bleed in her brain when she was 32. And she lost mobility. So she had this mobility scooter. And she hadn't got out during the pandemic. And after the week on self-acceptance, that little exercise I told you, she put a photograph of herself by her fire. And she said, I got up, I gave myself a good talking to every morning, and I got on my scooter and I got out every single day. And it's beautiful. It's been beautiful. We've had people who've started at week 2 going, I was having suicidal thoughts, thinking I was the worst thing on the planet. And I was costing everyone so much. By week 12, they've gone and got a job. And so we've just been amazed at the result of the Kintsugi groups and communities.
It's so exciting. And the whole thing about belonging, but not fitting in, is just incredible. So that's the dream in some ways has partly been realised, but there's probably a bigger dream if I know you. And what is that dream? And if people want to join that movement, I guess, how can they do that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the dream is I want to see a world where emotional mental health is understood and accepted with safe and supportive communities for everyone to grow and flourish. That's what I'd like to see. Vision is the art of seeing the invisible that produces passion and energy, isn't it? And so it's a massive dream. And what we need to make it happen is we just need people to get on board. And so hopefully, you might have been given one of these as you walked in. Has everyone got one of these on? And you've got one. Just find it for me and wave it at me if that's okay. It's quite a nice fan, actually. There you go. And this just tells you all about Kintsugi Hope and what we do, and tells you how you can support us through prayer and through finance. And people say to me sometimes, and I've got to be really honest here, why would you ever talk about finance at your event? And it's simply this, is I run a charity and I literally don't know what else to do. I've come to that conclusion. It is really hard just expecting it to come through the door every time in some magical thing through the letterbox. And the other thing I really want to do is I want to make this thing sustainable, because what I've seen in charities over the years is charities get massive money from government. The government give it to them for a year or so, then take it away, and then in a year's time they have to crash and make half their workforce redundant because the money's gone again. And there's just no way to live. It gives the CEO a nervous breakdown, and it's just not sustainable. So we've gone for a strategy, is can we find as many people just to give £5 a month, £10 a month to support Kintsugi Hope, to just get a load of people that want to be part of this thing. And so if you're interested, inside here there's this little form here that you can fill that in and give that to me during the interval or at the end. There's a bit where it says address and bank card details. If you don't have that tonight, don't worry, I will hunt you down. I will know where you live. I'll just give you a call in the week. And if you want to do that and give it to me, we would be so, so grateful for your support. But let me be 100% clear, all right? Number one, this isn't to take away from any money you might give to a local church. Number two, it's not to take away from any other giving to charity. Number three, it definitely isn't about if you're struggling. All this is if you've got a £5 or a £10 at the end of the month left after you've got paid, and you think, actually, I really believe in this. That's what it's for. And so I hope you hear my heart on that. And if you can do that, we would love, because our heart is generosity, we would love to give you some gifts. The first thing we'd love to give you tonight is honesty over silence, which is okay not to be okay, which is my heart on paper. Which is really real, really honest, really looking around mental and emotional health, and a really good book to give someone who's really struggling, actually. Second thing I'd love to give you is a journal. Anyone here journal? Put your hand up if you journal. Oh, that's really good. I was told, right, that journaling is really good for your mental health, so I started journaling, but I noticed that I only journal every time I feel depressed. So every time I go back to my journal, it's the most depressing thing I've ever read in my whole life. And so what I've done here in the journal is on every other page, I put a positive quote, or something from the Bible, something from personal history, something from honesty over silence. So I've come up with all your positive thoughts for you. And so there's no excuse to start journaling. And then I think probably the most special thing I can give you is I have a friend who was on the first Kintsugi group who makes these beautiful handmade pendants. They're bespoke, i.e. she spends a long time on every single one. And they're just beautiful. They're just so, so beautiful. And I'd love to give you one of those. And lastly, a copy of Bouncing Forwards, and I'll sign that, not because I'm into signing, but just because I would like to say a massive, massive thank you. So if you are interested, it isn't a big sell, but please think and consider if you could get behind that. But we're going to watch a little video now. This is what a group in Bristol put together. This is what was put together by us. This was put together by a Kintsugi group in Bristol. So it's only 60 seconds. Check it out.
You know, life is about connection with other people. And the only way we can really connect with people is to be honest.
Kintsugi Hope has helped me realise that it's okay not to be okay.
The power in this is when people start to think, oh, I'm not on my own. I'm not alone. There's other people that feel like I do.
Kintsugi is a Japanese art form for repairing broken crockery.
They actually make a feature of the breaks and infill them with gold.
The whole thing is made more beautiful and more meaningful because of its brokenness.
being honest isn't weak, it's strength, it's courage.
It really helped me just as a starting point to sort of discover a lot of these issues at a deeper level.
It's about getting to know yourself, really, rather than living by other people's values.
Kintsugi Hope allowed me to be welcomed into a group of people where I could be honest with myself in front of them and where there was no judgment.
It sheds light on the way you're feeling. It sheds light on why you are the way you are. And once you receive some of that light, you see more light at the end of the tunnel. It's a journey to healing.
So I just wanted to finish this half by reading you a poem. I hope that's okay. It's written by a beautiful friend of mine called Jane Smith. Jane is a lovely elderly lady, and she sends me poems typing it up on an old typewriter. So cute. Jane has a very rare form of blood cancer, and when she found out that I was starting a charity called Kintsugi Hope, she said, "I've written you a poem." And I actually think it's one of the most beautiful things that I've ever read, and so I just want to finish this half before we go for a break, to read some of it to you. It says this: acceptance in the anguish, beauty in the bruises, comfort in the conflict, courage in the crisis, determination in the distress, dignity in the disappointment, direction in the difficulty, faith in the fear, grace in the grief, healing in the horror, insight in the injury, lessons in the living, love in the loneliness, mercy in the misunderstanding, opportunity in the ordeal, peace in the panic, purpose in the pain, rest in the restrictions, sanctuary in the suffering, shelter in the shock, strength in the shadows, treasure in the trials, trust in the trauma, victory in the vulnerability, and wisdom in the weakness.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. As Patrick said, it's interval time. You can grab a drink from the table there. You can grab something from the table there. And we'll be back in 15 minutes. Bring you up to date with a few other things that you might want to join us for. Online on the 30th of November, we kick off a week called the Christmas Campaign Give Big. No, Big Give, which is a nationwide double the impact of your one donation campaign that is on every year. And to kick that off this year, we're doing an online event called Fragile Courage, so you can join us from up here in Chester. We'll be sat down in Chelmsford, but we'll be joined by people from all over the UK, and we'll be hearing some incredibly inspiring stories of people who have shown courage in some very fragile situations. So do join us if you'd like to for that. We also have been participating in the Bid Church Read. Bouncing forwards, we were very privileged to be selected as one of the National Big Church Read books. You can buy bulk copies from Gerald or from us here on the stand, and you can read it in small groups, prayer triplets, whole church, whatever. There's videos that are free online, small group questions, and if you're looking for something to do all together in 6 weeks as a group, it's a great recommendation. If you want to know more about Kintsugi Hope Wellbeing Groups, we do online information sessions. They last about 50 minutes. They're online. They happen at lunchtimes, and we hold them once or twice a month. All you do is go to our website, find the next date that suits you, click on it, and you're booked. And we spend nearly an hour with you, telling you anything that you want to know and answering any of your questions. We are delighted that Spring Harvest has helped us promote this event and this whole tour. So there is a flyer on your table telling you all about Spring Harvest. If you fancy joining them, we'll show you a video in just a moment. And then there's also some cards on the table that if you would like to hear from us, we need you to sign up to give us permission to do that. We'll send you a regular newsletter of updates about all that's going on in the world of mental health and faith, what's happening in the world of Kintsugi Hope. You also get access to a monthly themed podcast from some experts on many of the themes that we've been talking and sharing about tonight. So if you want to know more, there's a beautiful spotty box on the table. Just fold your card, tuck it in the letterbox, and we'll add you to that email list, and you'll get access to the podcasts. So here's Spring Harvest, so much more, and then Tashi and Mike are going to sing to us again.
We know that you love Spring Harvest for so many reasons. Spring Harvest is a great family experience by the seaside. It's beautiful days by the beach. It's a chance to catch up with distant friends and reunite. It's a safe place where our kids make unforgettable memories and lifelong friends. It's a space to get away from the everyday pressures of your job and breathe. It's your fun family Easter holiday. But it's so much more. Spring Harvest is where God transforms people's lives forever. It's where we write new faith stories together. New organisations are birthed that change communities and nations. It's where we worship the unshakable, unchangeable and unrivaled God. Spring Harvest is where God renews, restores and rebuilds our churches, our home groups, our youth groups. It's where he renews, restores and rebuilds us too. Renewed, restored, rebuilt. Never the same again. Spring Harvest. So much more.
The next song we're doing is called Bits and Pieces. Patrick in the car yesterday asked me, why is Kintsugi important to me? And it got me thinking that, of course, it's not only the image of the piece looking as beautiful as it does with the gold through the cracks, and to me, the image is not, it's the process of the image. There we go. My thoughts all over the place. The process of the artist sitting down with these broken pieces, putting the gold powder into the cracks. And so often we think that change is overnight, that it's a flick of a switch. But it actually takes time. It takes time to get all the tools that help build us back together. So here's Bits and Pieces. I was in bits, I was in pieces, covered in silence and people walked by, no one could hear And somehow you found me, and now you're patching up the cracks and holes, filling in the gaps with gold. You said you're never giving up on me. I see your fingerprints around my soul, filling in the gaps with gold. You said you're never giving up on me. You built a home. You built a home. You built a home from the pieces of a broken soul. Yes, you built a home. You built a home. Yes, you built a home from the pieces of a broken soul. I was bent down under my feelings. I've been down here since the roof caved, crying out loud, kicking and screaming, not giving up until you walked in. And somehow you found me, and now you're patching up the cracks and holes, filling in the gaps with gold. Said you're never giving up on me. I see your fingerprints around my soul, filling in the gaps with gold. You said you're never giving up on me. You built a home, yes you did. Now you built a home from the pieces of a broken soul. Yes, you built a home, yes you did. Now you built a home from the pieces. You built a home from the pieces of a broken soul. Patching up the cracks and holes, filling in the gaps with gold. Said you're never giving up on me. I see your fingerprints around my soul, filling in the gaps with gold. Said you're never giving up on me. I see you patching up the cracks and holes, filling in the gaps with gold. You said you're never giving up on me. I see your fingerprints around my soul, filling in the gaps with gold. Said you'll never give it up on.
I'm going to ask Joel Harris to come. Now, Joel is our head of Kintsugi Youth, and I've been mentoring him now for a couple of years, and to be honest, guys, it's not really going that well. And so he's going to come and he's going to try and communicate, and I just wondered if you could do me a favour in Chester tonight, because I know that you're real and authentic people. So after he's speaking, if you could just mark his talk out of 10, that would be fantastic. You know, on a bit of card or paper. You know, don't worry about supporting us financially. Just mark him out of 10. That's what you want to do. So Joel Harris, ladies and gentlemen. Joel.
Hello.
You're young.
You're grey.
Thank you. And now the thing is, right, young people, there are so many things I don't understand because I am obviously old and
Ancient.
grey. Ancient. I wouldn't say ancient, but yeah, I get what you're saying. But pen. When you keep saying everything's pen, I just don't get what you're talking about. Does anyone else get what they're talking about? Loads of people don't understand what you're talking about when you say the word pen.
Actually, I don't think they understand what you're talking about, because that's not something anyone says. What you mean is peng.
Peng.
I'm just trying to pronounce it for you. P-E-N-G, peng. Not pen, peng. And peng means good looking, attractive, hot.
I'm peng.
No.
My mum's peng.
I'm not sure I can say...
You're not saying my mum? What are you saying about
No.
My mum's definitely
Your mum's a lovely lady, but I'm not sure I'm in the...
Is my mum peng?
I'm not in the... Can I leave?
Use mum pen.
Should we talk about Kintsugi?
And what's this other word you keep using, drip, for heaven's sake? What, I mean, that's like a dripping tap. Has anyone ever heard of that, drip? You keep on saying, that's drip. I mean, flipping heck, that's a dripping tap. It's surely,
No,
what are you talking about? What does drip mean?
Drip means like you got good clothes or you got good jewellery, like you're iced out, like you got drip.
So I'm pretty drip.
No.
You're drip.
Yeah.
But mate, we are literally wearing the same
It's how you wear it. It's how you wear it.
All right. Tell us a little bit around some of the challenges that young people have been facing at the moment, particularly coming out of the COVID pandemic.
Sure. So, as probably some of you probably heard on the news, mental health in young people is something that's been spoken about a lot over the past 18 months, how the pandemic is causing this, how a lot of stuff's happening with poor mental health in young people. Well, actually, the mental health crisis with our young people didn't start 18 months ago. It started ages ago. There was a mental health crisis with our young people before the pandemic. All the pandemic has done is fueled that and put a spotlight on it. So our young people go through the teenage years, what are a very confusing time. They're an identity crisis. You're trying to work out who you are. And actually, because of that, there's a lot of security put in place for them. There's a lot of safety routines. There's a lot of things will happen. For example, young people have routines, don't they? Every day they wake up, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. They go to school, they do work, they come home, do their homework, do a class or whatever, play on the Xbox, do something, go to bed. And that's what they're doing for the next 5 years. And there's a lot of security in routines. There's a lot of safety in routines and knowing what you're doing next. So it allows young people to explore who they are, to understand what's going on in their teenage years. But what COVID did was break all those routines. It took every routine, every safety blanket, every security they had. And suddenly they're trying to work out how to be a teenager without the routines, without the safety, without understanding what's going on. And that's why you've seen this increase and seen this more spotlight on young people's mental health.
Yeah, and tell us, what is Kintsugi doing to help young people? Because actually 12 weeks is long, isn't it? I mean, you can hardly count as well.
Right, yes, Kintsugi Hope. We created Kintsugi Hope Youth Wellbeing Groups, and because I can't count, they are 6 weeks long instead of 12 weeks. That's not the reason. The actual reason for smart people like me, it's not because we can't count, it's because 6 weeks fits into the shortest term. Patrick doesn't remember that because 50 years ago he left high school. So what it does is 6 weeks fits into the shortest term, so you can run this in youth groups, schools, and youth outreach centres. And it's very similar to the adult wellbeing group course in the sense of 7 different learning styles, and is done through peer mentoring and group mentoring. But it's a safe space for young people to process what's going on. Right now, so much stuff is going on. Young people on social media all the time, they see what's going on in Afghanistan, they see the climate crisis, they see what's going on with COVID. The world does not feel safe for our young people right now. And what these groups do is create a safe space in an unsafe world for them to process what's going on.
That's fantastic. And have you got a story or something that's happened to a young person as a result?
Yeah, sure. So we had this one young lady start a wellbeing group who really struggled with anxiety. She would never open up, she'd never talk in her group. And they came to the 3rd week or the 2nd week, and they said, hey, does someone want to share what they've just done in this activity? And this on Zoom, so she unmuted herself, and she went, yes. Youth leaders were a bit shocked, they were taken aback, like, oh, okay then, yes, go ahead. And she started sharing what was going on. She started sharing what had she done in this session. And then they said she took over the group. She said, right, who's next? Oh, you? Okay, tell me what you've done. And she started helping people. And they said after the 6th week, she was highly recognisable because she'd found a safe space to accept who she was, to understand she is broken, but that's okay, and to flourish in that. And that's really what these groups are about.
That is totally pain.
Not right.
Anyway, if you're a youth worker, if you're a teacher, if you're a church leader and you're not running a Kintsugi group, please consider helping and getting in touch with Joel, because our young people really need that investment at this time. And we'd really love to work with you and for you to part of this. Thanks ever so much.
Thank
That
you.
was reasonably okay. What do you reckon, ladies and gentlemen? Joel Harris. What are we saying? 5, 2, 10. It always happens every night. What we're going to do now is my lovely friends, when they found out the themes of bouncing forwards, particularly the last chapter, it talks about this resilience river. They made me this animation. They drew it themselves, and 60 seconds. So please watch this. Check it out.
Resilience is like a river. Its levels can go up and down. On good days, when the water is flowing, we feel loved, encouraged and supported. We may float over the rocks and the challenges. But there are bad days too, where our levels are lowered. Trauma, loneliness, trying to fit in. The water has stopped flowing, and we are more likely to crash. What are the things that lower your resilience levels? And what brings them higher?
So on your tables, hopefully, can you find your resilience river? Everyone should have one of these. We've got thousands of them. If you haven't got one, we'll make sure that you have one by the time you leave. And basically, this is for you to fill in. Now, what you can see there on the screen, and it's a little bit faded, but along the bottom there are some rocks, okay? And the whole idea is those rocks, I guess, stand for circumstances in our lives. So, for instance, for me, one of my rocks, as I spoke about in the first half, is anxiety. And I know that if my resilience river is low, bang, I'm going to hit that rock called anxiety. Now, I actually haven't been magically healed of my anxiety, but I manage it quite well. I'm quite self-aware, and I know the things that I need to do to manage that. And so I need to keep my resilience river high. You know, another rock may be complex relationships. You know, I have 3 teenagers. Who knows teenagers are easy to upset? Does anyone know that? The other day I was sitting there with my 18-year-old daughter, and I really upset her. I was really insensitive. Apparently, I was breathing too loudly. And, you know, I apologised at this. And then I asked her, and really insensitive of me, I asked her to empty the dishwasher. To be fair to her, she had done it 4 years ago. I'd forgotten that. And I should have taken that into consideration, apparently. And but, you know what I mean? It's silly examples. But actually, when our resilience rivers are really low, relationships sometimes can really knock us. And so what I did in the last chapter of the book, I try to be really honest and share my resilience river. Now, I've had a lot longer to think about this. And you'll see there, shame drives perfectionism, which drives the inner critic. You could have put anxiety there, which I was talking about in the first half. Now, what I want to do in the second half of this night is think, what are the things that raises our levels of resilience? We talked about in the first half the things that take it down. What are the things that raise it? And I've discovered through doing this with literally with teachers, with staff, with youth workers, with church leaders, with all sorts of different types of people. You can do it in businesses. People are really, really quick to work out the things that bring them down and really, really slow to put other things that bring them up. So how about gratitude? What does gratitude mean? I describe in the book is gratitude is hunt the good stuff. I love that. Great definition. Hunt the good stuff. It doesn't mean that everything's perfect. It means we go hunting for the good stuff. I put there passion, values, purpose. Viktor Frankl said this: he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. Viktor Frankl was another survivor in the Holocaust. Our values are really important. Our values are our priorities. I actually think values are one of the most important things people can engage with at the moment. There's another chapter in the book called What is Success? Success isn't, you know, I've got a friend who, really high-paying job, amazing car, amazing house, and I'll say, what's your values? What are your priorities? Well, my family, my friends. But you never get to see them. And you say you're miserable. I'll tell you why you're miserable. You're not living to your values. You're not living to those things that actually make us who we are, what are important, that raises your resilience levels. And it's so important that we think about our resilience and how we do this. One of the key things about raising levels of resilience is this whole thing about hope. And what is hope? And when I was going through a really tough time, my wife bought me a dog. Here it is. And we decided to call the dog Hope, and which, thinking about it now, is a pretty stupid name for a dog. I mean, imagine how my poor neighbours felt hearing me shout out at the top of my voice for weeks, "No hope! No hope! No hope! No hope!" They're like, oh my goodness. In fact, apparently they heard me one day shout out, "Diane, I've lost hope!" And they're like, they're having some real problems next door. I think they're going to get divorced. But hope is this. Hope is saying nothing lasts. Everything will pass. Nothing lasts forever. In this lifetime or the next, nothing lasts forever. And I love this analogy. I've used it a lot over the years. Is if you go out outside tonight and you look down, you'll probably see these grey, lifeless concrete slabs looking back up at you, and pretty depressing. But and if you look a little bit closer, you might just see some grass growing through the cracks. And you can bend down and you can pick that grass up and you can chuck it away. But you know what? You probably won't get its root. So it's just going to keep on growing back. And if you leave that grass, it will crack the concrete. And I want to be the type of person that just doesn't ignore the grey, lifeless, painful stuff that goes on in people's lives. In fact, we're sort of called to come alongside and be with and among people that are struggling with that sort of stuff. But I also want to be someone who sees the grass growing through the cracks, that sees the opportunities of change, that sees that things can happen. In a minute, we're going to hear what's been described as one of the most hopeful songs ever written. And Mike and Tashi are going to come. But I wanted to tell you the context to this song. This song was written by Harold Armand and Yip Holberg. And it's called Somewhere Over the Rainbow. You may have heard of it. And Yip penned the words, Harold wrote the tune. But this is the background. Yip had seen the horrors of World War I. And he was left bankrupt after the crash in 1922. Harold was born with a twin who died in infancy. At the age of 16, they decided to flee from their Jewish Orthodox parents because they wanted to pursue a musical career. Here were Jewish musicians, writers, writing this song as Adolf Hitler was going around trying to exterminate the Jewish population. They wrote it in the context of fear and anxiety. They wrote it because they wanted to say, no matter how hard life gets, keep looking for a different perspective. Keep looking for that rainbow. Keep looking for hope. And the song has taken on a life of its own. You may have heard of a singer called Eva Cassidy, who said it was her song she used to sing the most. She died of cancer at a very young age, and until she could walk, she would get on that stage and she would sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Recently in Manchester, where there were the horrendous Manchester bombings, a couple of months later, Ariana Grande, the superstar, didn't decide to finish the concert with one of her songs, but this song, she broke down in tears at the end, and literally everyone started to sing as they started to grapple with hope. I love this little quote from Matt Haig. It says this, nothing is stronger than a small hope that doesn't give up. And I guess my prayer for tonight and my whole thing about bouncing forwards is that maybe whatever you're going through, however hard life is, we need to accept those things. But please, let's see the grass grow through the cracks. Let's keep believing in hope. Let's keep believing that we're not on our own and we're not dissimilar. And this is Somewhere Over the Rainbow. If you know the words, feel free to join.
that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, birds fly over the rainbow, white, oh the white untied. If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, white, oh white
Thank you so much, guys. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for coming this evening. I just want to finish by reading this little bit, which I guess just sums up all our themes for tonight. And it says this, it says, success isn't the amount of work I get done in a day. It's not the amount of likes that I get on social media or the amount of money in the bank. It can't be measured by external things. For me, it's knowing that I have nothing to prove in order to make me lovable to God. And His love never changes. Success is looking in the mirror and not wanting to change what I see. Knowing that God loves me. It's knowing that He wants me to show up to my thoughts, my feelings, my doubt. It's being present to my family, my friends, my colleagues. It's being authentically known. Bouncing forward means finding ways to be comfortable with uncertainty and mystery. Finding the humility and the courage to know we can't control everything. Resilience and bouncing forwards aren't about finding the perfect life, because life doesn't need to be perfect for us to find contentment in the here and the now. I've been so privileged to be with you here this evening, and I just want to pray for you guys, and we're going to be around for the next sort of 20 minutes or so, so please come and chat to us. We'll be on the stand. If you're interested in running a Kintsugi group, then do grab this flyer if your church isn't running one. If you want to know about the youth stuff, talk to Joel. If you want to become a Kintsugi partner and sign up and support us financially, that would be incredible. But again, no pressure. But thank you so much for coming. We really do appreciate it. We do these little cards to send to people, and in the middle it has the word flawsome, and it's a bit of a weird word. My PA Ludovine, who's French, came up with it, and I said to her, you know, you can't just make up words in England. We tend to stick to the dictionary. It works quite well for us. I don't know how you get on in France. And my wife was like, don't be such an idiot, Google it. So I Googled it, and the word flawsome means this: an individual who embraces their flaws and knows they're awesome regardless. Pretty cool, right? And so you're flawsome, and we're very grateful that you're here this evening, and do come and chat to us at the end. Father God, thank you for every single person here, Lord. Thank you for John and Tim and Gerard and all the other leaders that have put this on tonight. all their hard work, God. But I thank you that you do know each one of us. You do know the things we're struggling with. And I pray for people where that ball is smashing against that play button quite regularly at the moment. I pray that they know it's okay not to be okay. For people who are so self-critical and they know that perfectionist person is them. They overthink things, they mind read, they catastrophize their thinking. And Father God, I pray they would hear the kinder voice today. They would look in the right direction. And just like the next voice that was speaking, so as the negative voice was raging, I pray, God, that they would hear your voice tonight, knowing that they are loved, they're cared for, that they're awesome, they're special, made in the image of God. And I pray, Lord, that however life has been, that we would realise that beauty can come out of brokenness. Teach us those things that raise our levels of resilience, Lord God, that we won't smash against the rocks. And I pray, God, that tonight that people would leave here just with a tiny little bit more hope than what they came in with. That a tiny little bit of just maybe looking for the grass growing through the cracks, not denying the grey concrete doesn't exist, but looking, oh my goodness, stuff is changing, things are shifting, and we're not going to keep this hope down. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Thank you ever so much for coming. Good night, God bless, and hopefully we'll see you again sometimes. Thank you guys.